Boom. All right, I think I'm live. My computer rebooted and my internet went down, but I'm back up. So I'm only like 5 minutes late. I think everybody can hear me. It appears it's going all right. I want to thank everybody for being here. Let's see who else here. Dees B. Carper, thank you for being here. Jonaside, thank you for being here. Jessica, what's up? Thanks for being here, Jessica. Glad you can make it. I need to get another moderator too. I need to figure that out. I've been needing to do that. I don't know what the hell I'm doing, but I've made great strides. So, the Carper, thank you for being here. Goose5568, thank you for being here. Tell you what, I'll give just to Ellen Fox. Thank you for being here. Very cool. Karen Suki, I think it is. Thank you for being here. Oh, cool. And I know I didn't do a very good job of advertising this one, so I wasn't sure if anybody would show up. I'm kind of busy with a bunch of things that are outside of this, so I was kind of running a little bit behind. But hopefully everybody can hear me. Ellen Fox, thank you for being here. Blue Doe, thank you for being here. I like that name. Very cool. And Blue Soul Group, so I can dig that by all means. Oh, thanks. I'll tell you, my friend, that puts you about in the category of very, very few people. Thank you. I appreciate that. Karen, thank you. Tell you what, I'll give it just another minute for everybody to check in. I hope everybody's doing well. This is not going to be a real long live, but it's going to be an interesting one, okay? And it's based on something I've encountered, so I'm just giving it a second for people to check in. I'll start kind of going over it. Yeah, I do Sundays normally every Sunday at 3 p.m. Central. I've been doing shows for about the last, I don't know, it's been a few months now because I'm up to like, I think this is number 35 of the lives I've done, which believe me, if you had any idea how resistant I was to even doing one live, and Jessica's in the chat, she'll tell you I was very resistant. I had this weird thing about energy fields and live feeds, and it's a whole nother thing. You know, we all have our little idiosyncrasies, and I'm no different. So that's something definitely. Oh, sound is good. Whew, thank you. I still have this weird PTSD, like majority depressive disorder from talking 2 hours and nobody could hear me. And I never looked over at the chat and all these people were going for 2 hours. We can't hear you. We can't hear you. We can't hear you. And I never looked over there and even saw it. So somehow that did some sort of weird deal to my psyche that I think I have such negative identities that have to be removed, dissolved. Anyway. Oh. Oh. Hey, Martha Hammer, thank you for being here. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being here, Karen. Mike Jones. What's up, Mike? Thanks for coming, bro. Appreciate you being here. Cool. Looks like everybody's kind of checking in. So thank you. Well, like I said, I appreciate everybody being here. And this is, it's interesting because I never know what is going to be presented by spirit or whatever reason for me to do the live that I'm going to do this present week, But this one was inspired. And it's something that I've come across a couple of times. And I think it's really worth talking about. Something I will say that I'm very proud of right now is that those of you that know me or maybe don't know me so well, my whole coming forward and stuff was caused by a car accident, and I died in this car accident, and I got exposed for my near-death experience. And then it kind of led to me talking about the other stuff that's happened to me my whole life. But as far as really coming forward or revealing things about myself, I have been super, super hesitant. All right, it was bad enough that I took like traumatic brain injuries in a car accident. I survived it, but then all of a sudden people would find out, oh, hey, I've been seeing aliens and extraterrestrials, interdimensional beings since I was a little kid. That does not go over well in the rings of what people consider sanity. So if it had not been for that, though, and I would have come forward, and one of the things was not just being a contactee, I thought was enough that I had started talking about that. All right, but I didn't want anybody to know that I was also a psychic, that I'm a medium, and I certainly didn't want anybody to know I was a hypnotist. I went to a bunch of those conferences and I never said anything. You know what I mean? I could have been doing services and things, but I wasn't comfortable with it. These are things I always did for the enrichment of myself. And I never thought it would benefit. I never thought about it benefiting anybody else, you know, and then taking that and combining it with the cognitive behavioral work that I went to school for and did professionally before that. It all's kind of coming together as a type of a tapestry. So I know now that I'm supposed to share that with people. And one of them would be the Earthbound Spirit Release that I do during hypnosis. And it's a system that I've developed myself, okay? And it's through a lot of studying for years. I didn't just start looking at this, you know, recently, but since I didn't go to one of these cool universities for that, I never talked about it, you know? And most of the releases I did were just with some people around town that knew me and found out about it, you know. But then I wound up getting exposed by Alexis Brooks and some other people by doing this. And I've done like now a whole bunch of them for years. So I can say it as far as Earthbound Spirits, I've crossed over probably around 650 of them out of a lot of people. Okay. I'm proud of that. It's good work. I think it's honorable and it means something. So what we're going to start off with in this discussion is talking about the layers of possession, kind of how I stumbled up on it, and then what I've encountered recently that entwines within this. We've talked about some of this before, but this brings a slightly different angle to it that I think is very worthy of talking about. All right. Let's see who else is here real quick before I get started any further. Oh, just saw somebody else. Uh-oh, looks like I fell behind that quick. It doesn't take long once I get to rambling. Paradox, thank you for being here. Truth Seeker, thank you for being here. Welcome. Greetings. Welcome for being here. Thank you for being here, Lavender. Yeah, it is important. In fact, that right there is the one, boom, that's a good one to start off with right there. It is very important. And a seed of the Phoenix. I haven't seen you in a while. Thank you for being here. Well, great. Thank you for being here. Okay. Now I'm gonna go with my. I'm gonna start off with a picture and just show that to you. Okay. And this is, like I said, some stuff that I've talked about before, but I think it's important to touch on some of this by all means. So, okay, I went to school for cognitive behavioral psychology is what I really kind of majored in, and also ethnic studies and psychology also. And then around 2001, I met individual John Sanders, who worked together for a while, and he was a licensed marriage and family therapist, and also he's an LMFT and also LBSW, and also a oh gosh, he was anyway. He was very good, and he was the best at dealing with. You know, I saw several of the therapy styles, but to me, cognitive behavioral was the best. And I think the one that yielded the best, especially with juvenile offenders. You know, it's one thing to find out about what classical conditioning was. Oh, okay, the dog started slobbering when the dude rang the bell. Big deal. How do you apply that to a juvenile delinquent in the system, in a setting? You know what I mean? How do you apply that? It's a different type of a way to utilize what we just sit there in the school and listen. Not everybody just hear and take a test over. Not everybody can apply those methods to people, all right? So that's what I do also when it comes to my crossing of Earthbound Spirits. Around 2001, John turned me on to Dr. Edith Fiora. And I like her work because she was doing cognitive behavioral. Okay. And it got me into really studying what the dead within the energy field are. And I mentioned it before. Okay. You've got, as a medium, I can often detect dead people, or sorry, unalived people on the outside of people's energy field that are kind of attached or maybe following them. And then I can like get some sort of survival evidence from that spirit and whatever the messages they have for the person. Okay. And it verifies that I'm not just crazy. But these others that I'm talking about here, these earthbound spirits, are trapped inside the energy field. Okay. Very much trapped inside the energy field. And they're so attached to a point of trauma that they don't, they're not really, they can't be scanned on the outside. And that really is a trip. So they're very, very subtle in that way. And while we're talking about that, something else I'm going to show. All right. We're just going to keep going because I don't have a lot of pictures this time, folks. So don't worry. It'll only be like way long time. It'll only be really slow this time. I'm just kidding. But this is really important because I've talked about, look, I've done short videos over all this stuff. They're all on this channel. All right. But I think it's a little better when I can just do it like this. I'm not pressed to squeeze it all into 5 minutes. It's much easier. Okay. So it's very important to really be aware. And it's not just talk about trapped emotions and how trauma actually stores in the body. Okay. And I like this chart because it's one of many that will show you what certain body parts and areas store certain traumas. Okay. And what I find often is that the earthbound spirits, and don't get me wrong, the demonic do this also. Okay. They attach to these areas of trauma. And for the earthbound spirits, it's often like, let's say the individual died of like a broken heart. You know what I mean? They couldn't cross over because they couldn't leave their loved one, or something like that. Or they had a heart problem, or both. Okay. And then what happens is they attach to the heart center of the client, of the possessed, is it's a word that Edith Fierro uses, and I think it's somewhat accurate. Okay. But anyway, so therefore they attack to the heart center. Now, I'm not saying it's like that all the time, but it gives you I've noticed that it carries consistency of somewhere a person had an ailment. They'll attach to that part of a person and the trauma that the person is storing there. It's just one of these things that seem to happen naturally. And again, I found that the earthbound spirits do it, and so do the demonic. Okay, so. And I'm going to show one more of those too, because I think this is really important, folks. And this is going to be just kind of elaborating a little bit more what we had just discussed. But these are things, everybody can look up on their own that are worthwhile seeing. And again, this is just dealing with areas of attachment. And it's often very, very, very concise. Again, you've got different organs that hold different traumas, different areas of the bodies, trapped emotions. Trapped emotions are big, okay? And you got to remember, for the most parts, you can see the effect that they have on us, but our feelings and our emotions are invisible. Just like a lot of these negative inorganic beings are invisible. Sometimes the earthbound spirits are invisible too. Some of us have the ability to see them or feel them, sense them, and with one of the clairs, but for the most part, they're invisible. And we start dealing with that realm, okay? But nonetheless, that's what we really are. We are beings of perception and beings of emotion, okay? So anyway, that's just to show how, again, trapped emotions, I'm just wanting to kind of just relay that to you. I know to some people this may seem rudimentary, but for those that do not know or unaware, don't feel it, like, for example, this client, I'm going to not give their name, but I have their permission to talk about what we're kind of going to do this over, but this is just the preliminary. So Like, for example, we did a couple sessions. The first one, I crossed 2 earthbounds that were attached to them on both sides of their back, and they've been having back problems. And since then, the back pain has relieved immensely. See, it's the earthbounds that were doing that. So, and that's when it comes to possession, because the thing about these earthbounds is they attach to this point of trauma or trapped emotions, and the way they express themselves is through negative behavior patterns, okay, that often destroy the life of the person they're possessing and inhabiting. Let's see. Going further, okay, going back to Dr. Fiora. Like I said, I had a great appreciation for her work. And it kind of started me on the journey of dealing with a lot of this, or accepting it and starting to experiment with it and see what was the most effective remedy and cure for these things, for these earthbound spirits. Okay, another one of her books, and I've got a copy of it right here, actually. Okay, this took it different because basically, there's another gentleman like William Baldwin. He talked about these things too. Like I think he's the one that wrote Demons on the Couch, and there are a few different people that dealt with this. And I've done a workshop did some reference with them. They're good too, but I thought Dr. Fiora was the best. Okay, but what she was so shocked to find these encounters. And the reason why I'm bringing this up and showing you this book, and what we're going to talk about is at the levels of possession, okay, as I know them and as I've encountered them doing the work. And that's why I'm talking about this, because I'm sorry, I see a lot of people talking bullshit and they can't do the stuff that they say they can do. They don't have the gifts they say they can do, and the real truth isn't coming out, okay? And there's little things they're not telling you, and I can tell because they've not really done the work. I'm not speaking of anybody specific, but I see that happening a lot. And then they do work with people and they wind up giving them attachments. And I've worked with some people that tell me that, they've said that the work is such and such. A lot of times it's somebody I have no idea who they're talking about, but they say, I've not felt good since we did that session and things like that. So this is real serious, okay? So the first level of possession that we're talking about here is what I deal with the most, which is earthbound spirits. Okay, and when I say that, I'm not talking about the demonic. This is a different layer. We're dealing with these layers. Earthbound spirits are like mom and dad that didn't cross over because they couldn't let go of the house. They couldn't let go of their loved ones. Or a lot of times addiction is a big one. Addiction will stop people from crossing over, feeling like they were cheated. Just sheer shock alone, the shock will start people from crossing over. Okay, and also a fear that the light is hell. Those people that have hurt somebody, I've had Earthbound telling me that, well, I've hurt people, and I think I'm gonna go in that light and burn. I was not a good person. You know what I'm saying? So these are all concepts and things that actually have us stay trapped. And like I said, that's the Earthbound. And I'll be honest with you, okay, like I said, I've done about 650 of them now, a little bit more than that, I think, but I'm not 650, 660, around in there, okay? That's the estimation. Done a lot of them, and I encounter different stuff all the time, but for the most part, when I come in at Earthbound Spirit, okay, looking at the other book that she had, The Unquieted Dead. I'm not going to flash that back up there, but just keep that in mind too. When dealing with the Earthbound spirits, I don't come in, like I have my own technique, okay, and I've designed it myself, but I don't come in like Max von Sydow, like an exorcist. I come in more with the cognitive behavioral. And if you're dealing with people like you and I, who are in some type of darkness, confusion, almost abyss, living through others, you're eager to talk. You've been trying to talk. That's why you joined with people. Okay? So when someone addresses you, if I come in like the dude from Full Metal Jacket, you're going to say, man, F you, man. Cat, shut the hell up, man. Get out of here. That's what causes conflict. But if you come in with the cognitive behavioral, someone that cares, an understanding person that is not being so judgmental, you get an entire different reaction from earthbound spirits. So if cognitive behavioral, see, I'm getting too hyped, I'm sorry, but it is what it is. This is real. Okay, if cognitive behavioral works on juvenile offenders and adult offenders and people, it works on earthbound spirits even more. Okay, it's called compassion to a degree also. All right, and in that way, the majority, now not all of them, okay, but the majority of the earthbounds cross over somewhat easy. I've been shocked over the years. Like I said, not all of them, but the majority of them cross over somewhat easy. Okay, so this is one layer of possession and one layer of attachments that can be dealt with. Okay, then we've got the next level. Okay, which is, as I can call it, as they're called, negative inorganic beings, or we could call them the demonic. Okay, and I'll often encounter them. I have a certain system that I use that undeniably reveals earthbound spirits. They're not easy to get to. Okay, they're so deep in the subconscious and so entwined in the energy field, blending in, that they're not easy to always emerge. Okay, but I have a very good procedure that does it. And there'll be times that these negative inorganic beings, the demonic, will pretend to be earthbound spirits. Okay, and they're pretty good at it. But there's certain things, I'm not going to say exactly what they are, but there's certain things that they're not capable of doing, not quickly when they're first revealed. Okay, and they're indicators that show me like a spider sense going off, red flag immediately. And what I do, folks, is look, judge me not. I'm not there to play Max von Sydow. I'm not there to play Malachi Martin. I'm there to help people cross over. So what I do is, I'm pretty strong. I get rid of the negative inorganic beings. I know how to do that too. You know, it's not about battling them and sending them back to hell or anything like that. It's just about getting rid of them and making sure they don't attach to me and they don't come back to the client either, and that they're able to defend themselves. So that's what I do more of, instead of trying to be this battle exorcist guy. There are other people that do that are more skilled than I. I leave that to them, their job. Okay, so that's the next level, and it's demonic. And I will tell you, I have witnessed and have dealt with these negative inorganic beings harassing earthbound spirits in the same body. Okay, and then we've got something else I want to point out too. We've got these earthbound spirits that are people that were really crappy people in their life. I mean, they were dark, they were hateful, angry, all these things, and spiteful, hurt people, whatever. And then they die, become unalived, and they become something worse. Okay, something different. They like transfer into something else. Okay, so that's another level. This is the more demonic that we're talking about here. The negative inorganic beings, those dark ones. Okay, and what's scary about this when dealing with them is you have to be aware as being, quote unquote, what people call fallen ones. But the truth is, you just have to understand how things are maybe created in the term of cosmic consciousness as cosmic creation. You know, you got those that are, quote unquote, negative beings, evil, but they're light beings. They're projecting a lot of light. So you have to use your discernment. What is the difference between the light of the sun, the light-giving light of the sun, and the kind of cold light from the moon? You know what I mean? There was that old movie, I think it was with Highway to Heaven. What was his name? Michael Landon, Little House on Prairie. I was a teenage werewolf. And they had this thing that turned them into werewolf that was called the Marifasa lupina. They said only bloomed in the moonlight, in the cold light of the moonlight. That's what turned these cats into werewolves or whatever. Anyway, just a food for thought. But it's a different in light. And you'd be surprised, when you get past the shock of death, you have a great deal of discernment in light. So people talk about the false light. What does the false light feel like? Does it feel alive? Does it feel warmth? Do you always have your loved ones in there? All these things that they say are tricks. Does that come with the false light, or do you have the discernment to know the difference? Don't believe that you're just so helpless like they're telling you. You know, once you get past the shock of death and go through kind of that, that panoramic life review, different thing going on. So anyway, sorry, I was hearing noises here, so that threw me off. Anyway, okay, so going back to these levels of possession. Okay, so that's the next level, this demonic. And like I said, they do things, they influence the earthbounds. You know, I've had earthbounds tell me before when I'm doing it started the first couple I did. That was years and years ago. Like the first one, the dude's telling me, he said, you're trying to trick me. You're trying to trick me. I said, you're gonna try to make me go in that light. I'm not gonna go in that light. And then he starts saying, and also I heard about you. We heard what about me? I just started doing this at this point. It's how can I possibly have a reputation for doing this on the other side when I just started? You know what I mean? But he's telling me, he says, you're bad. I heard you were bad. And they said that I shouldn't work with you, and they'll punish me if I do work with you. They'll send me like down to the pit. Now, what's the pit? I don't know, but it's darker than this place, and they say it hurts. And I'm thinking, that's why I asked, who is they? They said the others that were in this body, but they left because you were coming. But they said they'll be back when you're gone because the person's not going to do the protections, not for very long. And they're going to hang around till they stop doing the protection. They're going to join with them again. I mean, it was just straight clear as day. I was sitting there just doing this, you know, sometimes when you do this stuff, I don't care how many of these things I've done, how many regressions, how many whatever, I feel almost brand new every time because it's just mind boggling. You know what I mean? So anyway, that's the kind of influence that these others have on earthbound spirits, those of us that were people that are trapped in that near world between dimensions, between, you know, still here, but not there. And so there's, you know, there's more interaction going on there than we think. Okay, I'm staying on this picture for a minute because I still not addressed why in the heck I put this up. Okay, the third level, okay, the third type level of bodily possession is from, you know, oftentimes when dealing with the second level, which is the demonic or negative inorganic beings, you know, who's to say they could be from other dimensions, other densities, things of that nature from the other earth, who knows? But you've got others that are extraterrestrial, okay? And this starts taking us into extraterrestrials that are just thought forms, some of them, and are inorganic as well, okay? And this is going to tie us into why I'm bringing this up, because I have encountered this now 3 times in doing Earthbound Spirit releases. And we'll go through each one of them. One of them I've talked about before, but the first one I think is probably what most of the information should be put to. So we get to the point of where right now we can say when it comes to the extraterrestrial faction, we've got also humans that are doing neuroprogramming, the whole target individual thing. But even before that, we've got inorganic or organic extraterrestrials that are possessing people on the spiritual level. And, you know, when dealing with the types of beings that come to planet Earth, we often think, oh, they must be in ships and something of that nature or on some sort of technology. But often we have those that are beings of perception, okay? Those that can hurl themselves through space with their dream bodies, with their thoughts. And they land on the earth. There are 2 earths, the earth that's physical and the earth that's more this astral dimensional things merged, it's all merged together. All right, and they land within the boundaries of this other earth, the inorganic earth almost, so to speak. Okay, but these are beings of perception that interfere with our thought processes, interfere with our feelings, get within our bodies. Okay, and and so it takes us to a different type of not just abduction, but to extraterrestrial possession. And real quick, what I'll just should I have another picture I was going to show? Let me see. I think it's worth actually I'm going to keep going from here. Everybody just deal with it. This is just, I'm going to keep this picture up for a moment. Okay. Anyway, so this situation here, okay, this client is absolutely genius. They're really, really gifted. They're kind of young, like maybe in their mid to late 30s, I think, but really, really gifted, very aware, has practiced several different things. So they know how to protect themselves to a degree also. But I knew that they had Earthbound Spirit, so I crossed over. I'm pretty good with detecting how many are attached to somebody before I'm told on the technique itself, okay, just psychically. And I had put up that they had 4 or 5 on them. But when I do the procedure, there's only 2. And I crossed each of them over successfully. One of them was a little difficult, okay? It gave the name George, okay? And I got George to cross over. A few weeks later, I have another session with this client, and it's for past life regression. And I went ahead, we did that, and then later on after that, I took them through a spirit release. It was unannounced. I had to catch these things to where they thought they were safe, and I did. Okay. There were 2 attached. They were in the same area where these earthbounds were, in the back area. Okay. And this one that comes forward first is telling me its name is George. Okay. That's the first red flag. I crossed George over and it was successful. So I knew that was some sort of a deceit. Okay, but I didn't say nothing. We just kept going to because you can't, sometimes you gotta leave the breadcrumbs to be followed. Going through the process, it would cross it, got only so far before it started to be this extreme resistance. And the resistance that they were given, this thing was giving, was hatred, was pain, and it was flooding the client with visions. Okay. And so automatically I thought this is probably one of these demonic. Okay. But what threw me off is there's one thing that normally the demonic or the negative inorganic beings can't do very quickly. Certain questions I ask that they just can't answer. They'll lie eventually, but they can't do it at first. And all I'll say is, y'all, the divine field is real. And there's certain laws within the divine field that these MFs have to obey, or it just has this byproduct, however you want to put it. Okay. So certain things they can't do. This thing did do it, at least quickly enough to where it was a little bit deceptive. So it made me wonder also, and the client thought that this was a person that was so evil and probably had been crossed over, lost so long that they were becoming deteriorated. And then this thing starts trying to enforce the client's thought of this by showing itself as a person that is just completely a skeleton blowing away and dissolving. Okay. And this stuff is not, I can feel it's not right. Something's still not off about this, and then it begins projecting even more hate, more visions towards this client. And then they start saying, oh, this thing's absolutely hates you. I'm seeing pictures of you burning in fire with all these arrows going into you. And I'm feeling all this hate towards you. And, and look, y'all, when in a session, I don't play around, okay? And I'm all about cognitive behavioral, but at that point, I draw a line. I say, that don't mean nothing. That's not going to faze me or touch me at all. But what is going to happen is I'm going to get rid of you. I tried to help. You don't want help, you're going to leave. And I can do it. And that's what I did. I got rid of it. All right. But the fact just of what it was putting the client through and how it was very cunning in the way it was throwing certain things that was better than a normal demonic could do. But I didn't believe this was a person either. So when the sessions is over and everything, I went through, pulled a couple of spreads. I got a bunch of good, nice pendulums, and it comes up this thing is an ET. Okay. And it made more sense at that point. But what it was doing was it was pretending to be the individual that I had crossed over because it had been harassing this person and been on top of them in the same body part for a long time. So in that way, you've got like a triple possession. You've got an earthbound that was trapped there, two earthbounds that were trapped there, and one type of extraterrestrial that had something else accompanying it. I don't know what that was, but it left. I was gonna remove it too and get rid of it, but it left with the other one automatically. Okay. So anyway, so that I thought was a trip in terms of it was an ET that was definitely more thought-based, period. You know, even when the earthbound spirits, before I'll cross them, I can always see, before they announce who they are and everything, I can already see the light. I can see the portals. I can see people or whatever standing in the light, in the portal. And sometimes lately, a lot of these sessions, the clients start tripping because I'll describe what's going on, what I see, and they start tripping later on and say, "My God, you're like really psychic because you're describing exactly what I was seeing before I'd already seen it, and then you start describing it later." And so, it's like, so it's just that, but that's the link, that's connection. That's really being able to see energy directly in the universe. And, so whatever these people are saying, I don't give a damn about the fake light and all this stuff. Okay, there's one thing I can definitely say, which is when the light comes, okay, and when I start talking about love and God, and I say that in a way that is non-religious, for every one of y'all that is listening to my voice right now, when I say the source, creator, God, it's a personal relationship with you and the creator. It's not religious. It's not all these things we hear, all these different conformities. It's not. It's personal. It's your personal relationship with your creator, with your own superconscious, your own divine overself. Okay? And then once you start talking about that, it's talking about love, they start seeing their loved ones. They start seeing the light. So the love of God and the light are connected. I don't care what none of these people say. And they're not giving me enough of what they're doing to help anyone in these situations. They're talking a bunch of shit, but I mean, they're not showing me any proof. And then you get every night a person, "Oh, I had a bad experience. I went to hell. I went this and that." Yeah, maybe you did. That's your deal, though. It's not a standard for everybody. That was your experience. What do you have going on karmically that made you experience that? Are you getting hit with neuroprogramming, remote weapons? These are things that are valid questions right now, okay? Before we just accept what all these other people are saying, don't do this and that because Farsight said not to. When you got a couple of people, that you can see that are viewing things that aren't even right, mentally or energetically, you can see it. That's important, all right? Anyway, going to this, okay, and without even, I think, going off this picture, because it sticks to this. I said this is not the first time I encountered this, but it's been different, okay? Here. Sorry, I think I got to going really cooking hard on that one, man. Damn. All right. I'm going to show a different picture just so everybody doesn't get super bored, okay? When dealing with this encounters and of this type, I want to tie this also with, okay. What I'll do is I'll talk about the two other different experiences I have with this, and then go into, let's see. I don't think it matters which one I pull up. I'm just gonna pull up this one because it's one of Kasara's pictures of one of these beings, but it'll just be good. Something else I think it's good for everybody to see as I talk. It helps me to talk too, so that way it's not like I'm looking at myself that trips me out or something. You know what I mean? Don't like that, man. Okay, boom. Okay, this is the second time, another time that I encountered this. The last one I just told you was just about a few days ago, a week ago. Okay, but this one was different in terms that this Earthbound Spirit, I mentioned this before, I think I talked about this on Jessica's show, was a mantid. Okay, and it said praying mantis, and very importantly, this thing said that it didn't look like any of the representations we have of them, which means it didn't look like this, and it said it didn't look like really any of the earth mantises, period. Well, they said there was one type of, I think there's like 9 type of mantises, or maybe 30, something like that, but it said there's only one type on earth that looks similar to it, but it didn't look like that they were still different. This thing, it starts telling me what it is. It says that it was on a mission, and the first thing it starts saying is, okay, one reason is to find out why is this thing earthbound, okay? And it says that it was on board a ship. It starts talking about their people. It says that their people are very, very advanced, super advanced, and very, very peaceful, and that they were here on a mission to help Earth turn into a type 1 civilization as far as contact, and that they were having contact experiences with individuals. But then this thing starts saying, when you know how advanced they are, the very first things they're saying, but we're armed to the teeth. We're armed to the teeth. We are warriors. We're very peaceful. We have an advanced society, a peaceful one, but we are warriors, and we're advanced, and we're armed to the teeth. And it kept saying that over and over between all this other stuff that it's telling me. You know what I mean? So I knew that's something happened that kept it stuck for this reason. This is what this being said. It said that they were on this mission here, and they're on board the ship, and they have a special room that is like all these. And look, folks, I don't think they're med beds. So I'm not saying that. He called it more of like a stasis chamber, where they're all laying on these tables and they're telepathically in communication with contactees from Earth, doing trainings and doing exercises, and it's a teaching program, a contact teaching program. And they were all in this stasis communicating with their contactees when they got attacked by these reptilians within our atmosphere. And they were saying, or maybe that's why I get in trouble, like kind of high up my atmosphere, but it said how when they were all in the stasis chambers, something about their technology drops defensively, and that's when they got attacked, and they should have been aware. Then it started describing the crash after they were shot down. Humans come and start excavating the bodies. And it said that it was still alive at that time, when only that, he said it was, and another one of its crew members was still alive. And the people came and started moving them and killed them. And what they were doing was so rough, was so horrible, like torture immediately, that it was super upset. It was upset about the reptilians. It was upset about the humans, and it didn't cross over. Okay. So then it throws the B-dub, that's me, the question of, okay, how in the HE double hockey sticks am I across this thing? So I just asked it. I said, what are you spiritually like on your planet? What do you believe in? What do you guys say? And it says immediately, we're a lot like you. We believe in God, in source, in creator, in the one creator. Said, but then starts saying, but we're not like you. Your civilization is so disorganized spiritually. She said, for us, we're all uniform. We're all going towards the same creator, the same thing, the same. And the way, I tell you folks, the way it started, it's so fascinating. The way it started describing its civilization and the organization of it, it made me think about what would a really advanced, sentient insectoid race be like? You know what I mean? In that way. And that, like I said, I asked you, do you look like any of the praying mantis sketches that the client had seen, or anything represented here? And it said, no, we look different, much different. So anyway, so that's not what this thing looks like, but it's good to talk about this picture, I think. I myself am encountered an insectoid I've shown you before, and it looked more like a grasshopper. Not like this either. Anyway, point being, it starts saying how disorganized we were and everything. And I used that, and again, the love and the creator, and more in a reference of what it was familiar with, and I got it to cross. Okay. So this wasn't especially a super hostile being that was with this client, but it was one that was dealing with trauma. So even a civilization different like that can still get trapped here. That's what that showed me. Okay. So I think that's just worthy of thinking. And, you know, when you've got somebody who's not into this stuff and they're laying there telling you this in almost delta, in deep theta, you know, it's like, wow, it's stuff you can't just make up. You know what I mean? But that was the second time I encountered an extraterrestrial, or another time I'd encountered an extraterrestrial. Actually, that was technically the second time that I encountered one that was an earthbound that was not human. And I think that was worth discussing. Okay, let's go on to the third time. And I don't know if I actually have a picture representative for that. No, I really don't. I'll just talk. The third time, all right, or actually technically this was the first time, and this thing was attached to the client. And when it starts coming through, okay, it's bizarre at first, and you know, I didn't. It almost seemed like it was just all I could tell you. It was just strange communication with this thing, and then through the client, and then when I asked how it joined with the client, it told me when they went through the MRI machine. So those of you that have seen that MRI video I did, that was why. And that's not the first time I had heard that, because Art Bell back in the 90s had a couple of technicians on there and said that they were picking up stuff from the MRI and that there were entities that came out of the electromagnetic field of the MRI. So when saying this, and what this kind of gave me an interest in also was this what Linda Moulton Howe and Whitney Strieber called the gray overlay, the masseuse that was saying that they seen like these holographic grays come out of people's occipital lobes and stuff like that. So I've done a video on that too, the gray overlay, and how that's probably tied into the blue light and the effect of the cell phones and the 5G and all that. Heck, I think I do have a picture, just a fun one. And I bring that up because Linda Moulton Howe said that, well, the masseuse, for those that don't know what I'm talking about, I'm talking like everybody has heard me say this before. Some of you may not have. And I'm so worried about repeating myself that it's ridiculous. Okay, this came up. This masseuse said that this lady had come in and was in Malibu somewhere, and she put her cell phone. You have to turn your cell phone off, and it's on the table across the room. And while the masseuse is working on this woman, as soon as the woman comes in, the masseuse said they started seeing like gray aliens in their mind, thinking about aliens all of a sudden. And when they're working on this woman, this alien, this gray comes out of the occipital lobe, and it's like looking around. And then all of a sudden, she hears this phone that's turned off making a sound, an odd sound, the cell phone on the other table. It made like these two sounds, and this thing went back down into this woman like it was like it was a being out of the cage getting called back in. Okay. And after Art Bell went over that, and Linda talked about it twice. She talked about it with Whitney Strieber also. But when the Art Bell one, I mean, people started just flooding him for a long time, talking about MRIs and seeing entities and people that worked on them. This goes all the way to something that happened to me. I was getting I had to get a wisdom tooth removed. And they put me in that machine where you're turning, like the x-ray machine at the dentist office. And I asked the lady, I mentioned something about that. Yeah, I've heard about weird things for these x-ray machines and stuff and, you know, entities. And the woman looked at me, she goes, where'd you hear that? I was like, oh, Art Bell, some other places, you know. And she starts saying, she says, man, at the hospital, I worked on the MRI machine there. And it's in the basement of a almost abandoned part of the hospital. And she said, me and some of the other technicians talked about that. We'd seen entities around those MRIs, and those ones follow you home. But the ones around the X-ray machine seem to be just like these little shadow flashes. But the other ones follow you home and you have like nightmares. Yeah. And then the doctor walked in and she said, "What are y'all talking about?" We told her. She's like, "Man, I just got an MRI." Anyway, but that I think takes us to the gray overlay. I had talked about another regression I had done. That's on my channel too. It's called the gray overlay. And this individual was part of a hybrid project of beings that said they'll never come back here because of the 4G, 5G, and what will go up and how it's limiting their entire ability to do anything here. They want nothing to do with this place. And this client at the same time said that they've always felt blocked from some of their gifts. That's why it's that 5G. Taking that and turning that into what Jesse Beltran is talking about. And when it comes to the remote biosensors, remote biosensors and remote semiconductors in our bodies that are coming from this nanotech, okay, that is capable of being activated when we go to like 5G and when 6G comes on, that's going to take away a lot of people's autonomy and why we need neurocognitive law. All this stuff is seriously tied into this. And if you look at now, people are looking at their phones alone and just look at the simplistic study of the blue light in mice study and see what happened to them. And, so I mean, it's just how it just pushed the aggression and things of that nature. So something going on like that as far as programming goes. And, how much of this ties into what we've been talking about already. They're just taking it to another level and trying to not just assault people inorganically as the demonic does, as the negative inorganic beings do. They're tying it into technology and using technology to do it. It's just the next step. So that would be the third deal that I had with that. Now, when dealing with this aspect, all right, of the extraterrestrial part of possession, especially from those that most likely, do not have bodies. Let's go into something that I went into, okay? Now, I had a specific, definite interest in this because of something that happened to me. All right, now I've talked about this, so I won't spend a lot of time on this, but it's worth talking to see that I'm not just being weird and going off stuff that just comes out of nowhere left field. For me, okay, when this happened, and I've told you this is the second encounter that I had with adult onset experience that end up in 4.5 hours of missing time. Okay, and when this shit materialized around me, I was in this room. I've showed you this before, and they called this a synaptic helmet. It was even bigger than this. This thing was huge. And it looks somewhat like those new plasma helmets that they have now with the nano-coated coils on them. Somewhat similar, but I mean, this is different. And they said it was to give me a frame of reference for the encounter, okay? And that's meaning that some things I think I was seeing are so far out of our realm of to have a frame of reference for, and maybe materially wise also, that it's hard for us to perceive things. All right. But point being that they called this that. They called it a synaptic helmet, and they warned me that this technology had been used also to deceive people by lower entities, lower civilizations. That's what was coming through my mind, okay? So that gave me a tripped out obsession with virtual reality scenario technology and stuff like that. And at that time that this happened to me, okay, it was like, man, this is like 93 or something, okay? So, I mean, the only virtual reality was the thing that was out at the mall. It's like this trailer you get in and boom, 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 boom. You put the helmet on. It was like $30 too, man, to sit in there for like 10 minutes or something, Nothing like the stuff that they have now. But it gave me an obsession because, look, I've told y'all before, One is I'm missing this time. It felt like a super positive contact. The things I could remember in my mind that happened, but the further you get away from the event horizon, the harder it is to remember these things. Okay, clearly. But I kept thinking that like edge of my city is a huge Air Force base. Okay, so I started thinking like, oh, maybe they got me. Maybe somehow they've infiltrated my life or something like that. I kept thinking. And then, and although I didn't feel that way, but what if I was suffering from some sort of false euphoria or something? And then so I started searching more for information concerning this. All right. And then that's when I come up with the person I come across is this individual who is no longer with us, but this is definitely worth mentioning. Oh, and this is the only picture I'm going to show. Right here, I come across her work, Dr. Carla Turner. And she was the only person I had heard that was talking about virtual reality scenario technology and and what we could call an alien agenda, And the stuff that happened to her was horrible. She had horrible encounters. And this is the book I saw first. And it's all about basically it takes us to the realm of what Jessica and I have talked about a lot, are demons aliens. Like an example of what I'm talking about, this thing I just got rid of off the latest client. It's not much different. No, it was not quote unquote a negative demonic inorganic being, but it was some sort of negative, hateful extraterrestrial doing the same thing. So does it matter? But anyway, doing this, and this is what really, when I was getting into hypnosis, make me really aware of screen memories and learning things like that. So I wanted to, hypnotize myself to find out if I've been tricked. You know what I mean? And then you hear all these things now, that's why I hear so much about, SSP stuff. Then all respect to those people. I think they're getting experimented on and all the stuff they're saying. Okay, I have no problem with that. But the problem when I first came forward is some of those people trying to tell me I was in one of these programs and like they saw me or met me when they had not. And I have intensely looked at all my experiences. Okay, I've delved into them, went through the screens to look for all that stuff. So you can't tell me what I've experienced. That's what you experienced. You know what I mean? That's that's just one thing why I get. So I have no problem with that, but don't try to put me in your box of contact. It doesn't work like that. We don't all have the same type of contact. We're not all in those programs. Okay? There may be a million programs or whatever, but they're all not human related. There's a whole nother thing going on. Anyway, back to Carla Turner. She died she was unalived, her husband too, under bad circumstances. But it freaked me out when I was reading this and what she was talking about. But it got me very interested in screen memories. So while I'm talking about screen memories too, okay, we're going to talk about something else. And she talks about it. And it's something I've experienced too, but it wasn't necessarily negative, all right? And I'm going to use this picture that actually from somebody that I really don't particularly care for their work, but it's a good illustration. They said they've experienced it. And this happens during encounters, all right? What can be called the alien mind scan. And I do believe this is from Simon Park. I think says this is him or something in his childhood, getting a mind scan from one of these mantis beings. All right. And what that is entailing when you first encounter these beings and get in their biofield, they completely scan you, your mind, your intentions, your thoughts. And I've had that happen to me. Okay. And I think you got some of these beings that use technology to do it, and you've got others that do it through the optic nerve. And I've told you before, when it happened to me, it wasn't even a hostile attack, but it was uncomfortable. And I could feel it happening, but it's like it's already ahead of you. And then you've got the being answering your questions before you can formulate them in your head. So that's called the alien mind scan, but that's also used to present negative virtual reality scenario environments to us through the optical nerves, through neuroprogramming, the entire abduction scenario. And now when I'm telling you, you've got other beings doing it that aren't even as material as this, that are extraterrestrial, but they're coming in. They're these invisible beings that are thought forms, mostly hostile thought forms, and they produce negative thought forms within us. And then they use our own pineal gland as a wormhole to start manifesting phenomenon and poltergeist here in the third dimension. So that's something very, very real. And I could say that it's hadn't been on the positive part of it, but I can imagine what a disadvantage it keeps us to, as just beings of perception alone. So when it comes to the abduction scenario, the alien mind scan needs to really be thought of, especially when you have demons pretending to be aliens or aliens pretending to be earthbound spirits. This is going pretty well, actually. It's going faster than I anticipated. Carla Turner wrote other books too. I'm not going to show them. Taken is another one. There's a mini series done on that. And there's another one, Fringe, called Fringe. Here's just a good illustration to... Real quick, just so everybody get a view. I think that's a good one considering earthbound spirits. I mean, sometimes the person stays because they can't leave their loved one. They can feel, how much the loved one is hurting, and they can't leave. They just don't want to. Or in the situation here, the person may have crossed over, and then they can come back and try to help. It seems like we have a time, but I've noticed we have a time to kind of wrap a few things up, and then we cross over fully. And time doesn't work the same over there. And then they come back and try to help. And I mean, to the point I've told you before that I had a client that had about 12 earthbounds on them. And I can normally do up to about 14 before I start getting tired, real tired. But this one, by the time I crossed, they were all family members that attached to this client because they knew that they were gifted. Okay. And by the time I crossed the third one, the third one is seeing the first one I crossed over is standing over there with wings and with a big old light body on. Tells you, come on, it's all right. And that showed me there again that the time frame of whatever happens when you go into the light is not the same as we have here for sure. So that's the two different ways, you could have someone attached on the outside because they love and they've come back to help. They're not attached. They're not earthbound. Okay. And then you've got those other that are earthbound and will join like that. So just food for thought. I think it's a good illustration for that. And it shows also how love goes through the dimensions. I've told you before, I had these beings that are watching, and they're in the room watching these earthbound crossing I was doing. And they claimed that they were from, what was it? The sixth mansion world. And they were saying that they was good. They said they're saying that they're observing because they thought that the spirit body was the same as the immortal soul I talk about. And they said they could do so much at the level that they're at, it had to be about the same thing. But the only thing that made them question it is that love. For some reason, love goes through every dimension, every universe, everything. It's like unstoppable. So they think that there's even more than just the level that they're at. But it showed me too that when you get so close to the creator, like the Bardo Thodol said, that at certain points you can get stagnated. Kind of like the Q, you know what I mean? So this is fascinating, but they were there to learn, to try to advance more and learn more about love. Or some of those extraterrestrials that said, hey, we're trying to figure out how when you all get unalived and when you pass, you go directly to the creator and we don't. So it's things like that that are very, very worthy, I think. Um, that's it, really. Check out the chat a little bit. Appreciate you all listening. See what's going on in the chat. I'll try to catch up here real quick and just see where everybody's at. Footballer, thanks for coming. Cool. Thanks for being here. At Wellness, thank you for being here. UK, thank you for coming. Awesome. Appreciate it. Always enjoy that there are people across the world we can all communicate now. It's really cool. Right on. Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you for being here. Yeah, it's an excellent book. Excellent book. She did really, really good work. And honestly, I think her work was more solid than William Baldwin's even too. He did good work too, but I like her because she's all about cognitive behavioral, and she did a lot of work outside of these areas. But it was, good work, I thought, because her hypnosis work was great. All right, thank you very much. Thank you, Lavender. I appreciate that. Never know, because I try not to be cookie cutter with what I talk about, but so much when we kind of look around in the community, forgive me, but it's people talking about the exact same crap that I heard back in the 80s. You know what I mean? It's just kind of regurgitated, repackaged, and they put words on there now. Quantum! Just say quantum. And it's like all of a sudden you've got this new era of knowledge because you put the word quantum in there. Oh, wow. I think I'm way behind here. Catherine, thank you for being here. Yeah, Catherine and her son Charlie run a group, Experiences of Colors, for the John Mack Institute. It's very nice. I have no alarms in here. I don't know what you're hearing, buddy. There are no smoke alarms here. Oh, thanks. Probably the mantids. Yeah, I've done a couple of videos on invisibility. You think you're targeted, Karen? Yeah, you can get it. Yeah, definitely. I've encountered that a few times. And it's weird sometimes because these people like know each other, and it's like a group thing, so it's things I'll ever speak back, you know what I mean? Or I'll have somebody that I know is working on other people, and I'll do a session with them, and they might have, 6 or 7 earthbounds attached to them. And it's often the people that tell me this: oh, I don't have any of that stuff on me. I've done my shadow work, Barry. And like I'm supposed to, oh, done your shadow work. Oh my God, you gotta be cool. It don't mean nothing, man. They got this stuff attached to them like everybody else. Up to now, of all the people I've seen and does these sessions with, there's maybe one person that didn't have anything attached to them. No earthbound spirits. We all got them, and they were running from me. I come back, did a surprise one, got them. You know what I mean? So it's just a fact of it, and that's why I say to people, I'm pretty sure that the earthbound spirit population on this planet is more numerous than the living, which is disconcerting, but nonetheless true, I do believe. Seems like a lot of people are talking about invisibility. Yeah, I've got a couple videos. It should be under, one would be under book reviews, and another one would be under personal experiences, invisibility stuff. Their techniques, I practiced that stuff for years. Had weird stuff happen with it too. Yeah. And like I said, Earthbound, the ones that I'm referring to more, you wouldn't detect them. They're going to be inside somebody. You know, I mean, there are some like we could call almost ghosts. I don't know if we want to call ghosts necessarily earthbound. I guess you could, but the ones I'm talking about are more inside the energy field. And the reason why I specifically focus on that is because you cannot detect them. You know what I mean? Until you get somebody really in that state and go through the things that will emerge them. That's what's kind of creepy about it. And I mentioned before, you know, like for example, the client I was talking about, I think it was George. When I asked George where did the real one that I crossed over, where did it join with the client at? It said something like when they were, I think it was 6 or 7, 8. You know what I mean? That's somebody close to 40 now. They've been with there and influencing their whole life. I asked, how have you been influencing them? I always ask. I thought that they really didn't deserve to live, so I wanted to kill themselves. I wanted them not to believe in themselves. I wanted them to feel hate and all the things that this earthbounder felt at his time of passing that stopped it from crossing. You know what I mean? And this wasn't really necessarily an evil person. It was just someone who was trapped within trauma and shock. And if you can get through that a little bit in a positive way, you know, it's an interesting deal. But either way, it's still good work. I'm glad you helped them to cross over the lavender. That's very important. Whether they be inside the energy field, outside, whatever. You helped them cross. That's super important. So that's great work. Good job. Yep. Very true. Thanks, Jessica. You're a very patient friend. You already know that. I get to go in and talking too much, tripping out, man. So, oh, thanks. Yeah, I think I got in a little bit of trouble. I will say something. I look. I'm just a person, and I realized something in the other lives I had done. My brother had told me too. He said, man, you talked about those heart walls, but you kind of got one, man. He said, you're very hard to get and to beat and to trick. And you had two people that kind of got in and passed your shields when you were recovering and you were just still in recovery from your accident and all that stuff when I first come forward. And I mentioned those people a few times because I'm still pissed off that they got me. You know what I mean? I realized I said, well, they gave me a heart wall. That's why I don't do that anymore now. You know what I mean? But that was getting to me for a while, and I didn't like seeing that fraud and that crap going on. These bad people, and it's like just a bunch of them. Not even just the couple that screwed me over. I see a lot of it, but there's some good folks out there too. And when going to those conferences, man, it's the best people in the conference or in the audience. They're spending all that money to be there. You know what I mean? But those are the people that are the most talented, the most genius, the most empathic. It's super cool in that way, and to get to interact with just a bunch of people that are on your same frequency. So I appreciate you saying that, Mark Hammer. I appreciate that, man. Thanks. But I'll try not to get myself in too much trouble, man. But I think I already did, so I'm trying to do anything that's going to hurt myself anymore. But that's what they do. Those dark forces go for the heart chakra, and they create those little cracks in you by stresses, and they jump up with people that you know and use those people to attack you. And the sad thing is, those dark forces do that, and they don't care about neither the person they're attacking or the person they're using to attack. They're just laughing. They're sitting back and laughing, and they don't care. You know. Hey, I was going. Yeah, I'd encountered that also. Something that's so intense on somebody and so entwined and so demonic, and it's been with them so long that I think it's. My advice is, hey, go to a team of people. You probably need a shaman, a priest, an exorcist, medicine man, all these things. You know what I mean? To help you actually get rid of that thing. Reiki person, all of them at once working on this person, I think, to get rid of that stuff. I've seen a few of those. And I think, Lavender, a lot of those type of possessions come from property that's built around portals and near portals. I think is where a lot of that comes. A lot of these entities hang out, those dark ones hang out around those portals where they can come in and out real quick. So yeah, I know exactly what you mean on that. And a certain point where, I might just get rid of the thing and, hey, I'm going on my business. Or if it's something so entwined, like I see in this one woman, the salt vampire looking thing, I had to send them on their way and say, hey, you need to go see somebody. In fact, you would Me to go jump into holy water, man, something, you know what I mean? Go jump in a whole swimming pool of some holy water. Shit. Anyway. Yeah, I've heard that several times. Linda Moulton Howe is a glimpse of reality. She talked about that. And people are so into the cloning thing right now, so it must be necromancy that they're doing. You would think necromancy, but it's I've heard that, and then also they can simply project these loved ones to you, and they can use their technology to emulate them. So you're really at a disadvantage on all 3 points, But as far as my contact, I know it's not going to be one of my living loved ones on board one of these experiences I'm having. And if I were to see that, I would definitely think it was some type of a holographic projection or deception, you know. But I have heard that too, and it also takes us to a lot of these craft. Like Preston Dennett wrote a book over UFOs and cemeteries. What are they doing when you see a light being shined down over a grave out of one of these ships? Are they getting the DNA? Are they doing reconstitution for clone bodies? For on board that ship, you've got a bunch of beings that are thought forms, and they need some they need some type of a body that they can walk around down here with. Takes us kind of into all that stuff, or maybe it may be all these things put together. But it's very interesting. Yeah, yeah. Those first that Yandar being was telling me that it was from the 16th dimension, and that we didn't have the dimensions correct. We didn't understand it correct. I felt like what was that, Buck Rogers? Everybody knows there are only 4 dimensions. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, yeah. It was. I mean, that one was. I will say this, Lavender. It was a little sharper than the average, like Earthbound Spirit. I mentioned there's certain things they can do and they can't do within the divine field, but this thing was pretty sharp. It made a few mistakes, but it was pretty sharp until they couldn't hold the hate back anymore. Intense hate, and that, like I said, it was just odd. In the way that way, it's like, I guess maybe them and the demonic or extraterrestrial, doesn't matter if it's demonic or extraterrestrial when they're that evil and that hateful. And what was really horrible was just how it happened quick. They were trying to flood the client completely with so many images and so much hate and feeling that not just the crossing couldn't be done, but it was meant to disrupt the session. And as I mentioned before, I've had times in several sessions now during a regression, there is some type of an agency throwing screen memories right then. Okay, not just ones that have been programmed in already. They're coming right then at that time. I remember one kind of negative session I had. Most of my sessions go pretty good, but one, I think the person was unhappy. But it was so hard to keep the screen memories off them and keep them on track during the session. You know what I mean? There's just constantly things being thrown at them that are screen memories, that stuff that's kind of like, oh, this happened here. This happened here. Oh, I remember this happened here. And it's stuff that has nothing to do with the goal and what we're focusing on. And I knew it was them trying to completely put this person off the truth. And it happened so many times that eventually they might even come out of trance. You know what I mean? But it's just that, so things like that do happen. I've had it happen, but I can normally get through most of them. You know what I mean? But it's just one of those things. So I know if I've encountered it, I'm sure a lot of other hypnotists have encountered it too. So, boom, boom, word, word, word. Oh gosh, I guess I'm way behind. Okay, I'm gonna try to catch up here. Season Mo, thank you for being here. No, but I will tell you this, okay? One thing that can be detrimental to answer that, you sir, is the person doesn't really want to let the Earthbound go. The Earthbound has been with them so long and is such a part of their personality that they don't want to let it go. They've got accustomed to it and they feel like they need it. It's almost like a codependency thing. I have seen that a few times. And then, so then when the Earthbound gets crossed over, they go through a depression of a type. So that would be the one thing I would say probably yes about that, you know. And something else, I'll throw this in for y'all too, okay? And you won't hear this from other people. I don't hear them telling people this. A lot of times before I'll do a past life regression, I'll just throw in an Earthbound Spirit Release. The person may not know about it because sometimes you can have a person going through a past life review and it's really the life of the Earthbound that they're seeing. It's not even their own. So that way it separates that, that it makes sure it's actually the client's past life, their own soul, as opposed to the Earthbound that may have been here hundreds of years. So they're seeing something so long ago that they think it's their past life. Just something to be careful of, okay? Ooh. Hey, thanks. I appreciate that, Lavender. Brunson, thank you for coming. Hey, you're welcome here anytime, my friend. Excellent. Kyle Smith, what's up, Kyle? Thanks for coming, man. Very supportive. I appreciate all your support, Kyle. You've been hanging out with me for a while since I first came on Jessica's deal. Oh boy, yeah, that's a big one. Yeah, like for example, the one of hell. Like being saying, I'm not gonna go into the light because, and I remember the first one I got, and it was a male, and I think he was from about the 70, died in 70 something. And he said, man, you don't understand. I hurt a bunch of people when I was alive. I killed somebody. And I think they're waiting for me in that light and I'm going to go in there and burn. And to my knowledge, you don't actually go into the light and burn, but you do go in there and make change. And, it comes down to how much have you gone against what your divine superconscious wanted? How much of not the school did you not complete? You know what I mean? So I didn't watch too much Space Ghost. Space Ghost. I was kind of more. I tend to tune into Herculoids a little bit more. But I remember Space Ghost and Blue Falcon and Dino Mud. Used to watch that when I was a kid. Right on. I have some other pictures of mantids too. I'm not going to show them, but they're different. Why not show one more actually? They're different. I've got several types of mantids actually, pictures of them, but it's interesting because I'll never truly know what this one looked like that we were dealing with. And I want to say if it said it was maybe somewhere, it named some type of kind of exotic praying mantis. I'll have to come and try to find out what that was. Or mantid, rather. This is an interesting one. And I've got some that Tony Rodriguez gave me that he says is from Mars. This isn't Tony, but this is one I found a while ago I thought was interesting. So I've heard about, you've got the smaller mantids, and then you've got the bigger ones that are like just huge, like 25 feet tall, that say that they are actually the seeders of solar systems, and then they monitor them after they seed them. So that takes me into the Uranta book, and I've got a video under book reviews called Life Carriers in the Uranta book. The Uranta book talks about these life carriers that seed planets and seed solar systems, and like they don't describe exactly what they look like. Yeah, you would think at first that maybe they look like panspermia, and those are what life carriers kind of look like. But then we got to start thinking, evolution-wise, what all levels of containers of consciousness do these mantid beings go through? You know what I mean? Or do the life carriers go through? At one point, do they look like panspermia? At another point, do they look like 25-foot tall mantids? You know what I'm saying? Again, just food for thought, okay? Let's look at the one that Tony gave me, because I've done his show and nobody's ever seen it. I was on the show a couple of times, but he gave me a couple of pics he said I could use that were representation of. He gave me two. Let's show the first one here. And he said, I think he said that this one was the hostile mantids on Mars, I believe he said. And it's interesting. I've heard other people talk about insectoids on Mars. And black people too. So melanin dominant people. There you go. Yes, yeah, Tony gave me that one. Can't remember if he gave that one a name or not, but he said it was a hostile species that's on Mars. They're very large and very predatorial, he said. Doesn't look especially friendly. I'd be all right not meeting that MF. Straight up. And he gave me one more pick, and I'll show that one too, but it's a different one. Let's see. And I do believe he said this one's name, I think he said it was from Mars, but he said its name was Luna, is what he called it. I'm sorry, I should know more, but I can't remember everything he said, but I'm sure somebody can ask him and find out. Right there, that one he called Luna. And he said it was very hostile too. I thought he said that's another type on Mars. Like maybe there were two types of mantids on Mars. Like I said, I'm not sure. I'm sorry, I don't know exactly. I'm not fully familiar. But it's very interesting nonetheless, though. And these don't look quite similar to the really big ones that have been reported to run the, being life carriers. So yeah, that very interesting when dealing with that, Hey, what's up, Ken? Glad you're here, man. Welcome. Oh, it's all good. I don't know. I don't know if they're oldest or not, sentient beings. I couldn't answer that one for you. Good question, though. Yeah, it is. It's different levels of it, And sometimes, I wasn't always as comfortable when Edith Fiora would call like some of the Earthbound's possessions, but it is, even if it's not demonic. Like for example, when the first ones that started telling me they had joined with the clients in the hospital in the incubator room, that was disturbing to me. I kept coming across that again and again in the incubator room, and I'd ask them why, and it would say things like, "We don't understand. I was trying to help. They couldn't breathe, or there was something wrong. I tried to go in and heal them and help." And others say, "Well, I saw a light. Finally, I saw this light, and I thought maybe it was my chance to incarnate again. I hadn't seen the light in so long." And they didn't realize that, hey, there's another soul attached to this body. And some of that was not even done with malice a lot of times. And these earthbounds don't realize when they join with the person, they're hurting the person. Sometimes they do, but sometimes it's not their intent. You find that out when you start doing it. You're like, whoa, it kind of just throws another dimension to it and helps us have compassion and a little less judgment. You know what I mean? So, yeah. But yeah, thank you for saying that, Cinema Phoenix. Yeah, the gray overlay. Oh, yeah. Oh, gosh, I'm way behind here. Yeah, I've been to a few MRIs myself, and not a big fan of it. Yep, it's a lot of it. I agree. Yeah, and you've got these inorganic beings and these These, for us, those beings may be invisible, but when we're dealing with our dreamscape and the phantasmagorical images, that come from our electron impulse, they're masters of blending into that and influencing that. And I mentioned before how some of the more positive or neutral ones, these inorganic beings, they show up in our third dimension, in our dreamscape as unnatural objects, something that's just out of place. Like I told you when it happened to me, I was unaware I was dreaming. I went home and cleaned my apartment, and I got this Ming vase on a glass table that I stepped through when I was partying one night with these chicks. They cut my leg off, man. But here's this tables back in my room or in my apartment, and this Ming vase is on there. It's worth a couple $1 million. I was looking at it like, damn, well, I cleaned this place really good. And I was standing there thinking, I was like, drinking a brew, and I was like, damn, man, I ain't got no alarm on this apartment. I'm gone for 12, 14 hours a day, and this thing's worth millions of dollars. That's when it started clicking. It was unnatural. It turned into like this little orange, pinkish ball and took off in the wall when I started gazing at it. But I'm not a trained dreamer strong enough to follow it as inorganic being. Instead, I lost consciousness when I started tripping. I couldn't sustain dream attention. You know what I mean? And then there's the other ones that are these invisible beings that manifest in our dreamscape that are really negative. And they're the ones that show up as people you know and love in your dream. And they'll be dogging you out hard, man. There's your mom right there tearing you up, trying to go MMA on you. Mama, what are you doing? Something she would never do. It's those cats trying to get the emotions to well up so they can do the Jessica's favorite favorite word, loose. Uh-oh, somebody died of cancer. Oh, I don't know who you're talking about, but I'm sorry to hear that. Oh, Carla Turner, yeah, she did. Yeah, she did. It's like some type of a really, and it was like super aggressive and super fast. And if I'm not mistaken, didn't her husband, something similar to that? They both kind of died under weird circumstances, and some things about her. And it's like after she did, was it Fringe or Masquerade of Angels? She didn't die that long after that. There's still some videos of her on YouTube. I advise everybody to check them out. You know what I mean? But for me, it tripped me out because they warned me about virtual reality, scenario technology. This woman's talking about it. She had negative encounters. I live by an Air Force base in the air capital of the world, so I was tripped out, man. That's why I learned about hypnosis. I wanted to try to hypnotize myself to find if I had screen memories and missing time and all that. And I went through that huge phase of thinking, I'm Mr. Conscious Experiencer. I'm not like Barney Hill. I'm not like Travis Walton. I can remember what happened to me. But the truth is, it was only a fraction I could remember. And it was kind of, and it got worse as time went on. You know what I mean? But that stopped me from getting a regression myself. And I learned hypnosis, but I wouldn't sit down and let anybody do it on me. I was only trying to do it on myself. Control. And eventually I had to figure out, wow, gosh, I can do other people good, but I'm not that good at it myself. It took advanced pranayama to slow my internal dialogue, talking to myself enough to really go into like even deep alpha, because I can remember the last workshop I had taken in 2012, and it was a good one, actually. The gentleman was a master hypnotist. And at the very beginning, first of all, he's old cat, okay, like dried up old, looked like a damn turtle. But he was sitting he was talking above his chalkboard was this big mandala, okay? It was just beautiful. All these different colors. I look like Ken Price, straight from South America or something. And he's telling people, but what it's doing is making people look up, okay? And it's putting them into a type of alpha. I was taking notes and stuff. We got done. He said, any questions? I asked him a couple of questions. I said, I thought this interesting when you pointed this out, yada, yada. And it was only like 4 of us in that class. And all 3 people turned and looked at me. They go, I don't remember him talking about that. I looked at him. I said, yeah, I know you don't. That's pretty good, man. I said, that doesn't work on me. I know what you're doing. You know what I mean? And that way it's took to another level. Not that I had a problem with it, but it's just, you got to be careful. People don't realize how quickly they slip into alpha. Just like that. It's very easy. And, and people being hypnotized is not nearly as hard as people think. Is people always tell me, oh, I don't think I could be hypnotized. Man, they go quick. It's a process. The problem is, do you want to be? Do you want to try it? If you don't want to try it, then it's not worth it. It just becomes a power struggle between you and the hypnotist. You know what I'm saying? Bernard Fox, thank you for being here, man. You've been with me for a while, too. On a couple different platforms, brother. Thank you for staying with me. Oh, well, you'll get no argument out of me. Get no argument out of me. Well, it helps get some people really nice BMWs and Mercedes, right? I better quit before I get in trouble, man. I better stop. Oh, what's up, man? Right on, Brian. Yeah, we went to school together, man. In fact, you live just a block away. Man, I was just driving by your old house the other day, actually, man. That part of the neighborhood is still the same. Man, I spoke in Las Vegas it's been about, I guess a couple of years ago now. That's where I met Nick Pope. Rest in peace. He, interesting, Alexis Brooks introduced us one morning when we're up there, when we're eating lunch one afternoon where they have the speakers eat. And then the day before I spoke, the day I did speak, I can't eat within like 4 hours of the time I speak. It makes me nervous for whatever reason. So I went up for the breakfast, the VIP room, like first thing they opened it up at like 7 a.m. I went up there and there's nobody up there. And Nick Pope comes up there. And he's like, hey, you mind if I sit with you? And no, not at all. He sat down, just him and I, we sat there and ate, we're eating. And, I just got this wild hair. And I looked at him, and he was eating this stuff. I looked at him and I said, man, I'm a huge Tom Baker fan. And he looks at me as I could be. He said, oh, really? I said, yeah. And he was just maybe a bigger Doctor Who fan than me. We sat there for like 45 minutes talking about Doctor Who after we got done eating. It was really cool, And then the night of the party in the little after school place up, or the after party place up there, the after party club, or whatever it was. It was a real nice conference. I was trying to get a brewski at the bar, and the register was like messed up, so I had to wait. And Nick was trying to get one too, and he was standing up there, and a couple of these ladies, really cute young ladies, that come in, and he's kind of talking to him a little bit, and they're hugging him and stuff. He's kind of celebrity, And he comes back over, he stands back over me, and I go, damn, Nick Pope, are you a Mac daddy? And he looked at me, he goes, a Mac what? I said, man, a Mac daddy, with the ladies, man, And he goes, oh, yes, I'm a Mac daddy. And he goes and grabs this one girl, and he starts to go like this. And he looks at me, and he goes, just like Benny Hill. And he's going like that and stuff. And, man, it was so funny. I mean, it brought me to tears when he did that. I've not heard anybody mention Benny Hill for the last 35 years, man. So he was a pretty nice guy. May he rest in peace. He's a really nice guy, and I enjoyed conversing with him. I've got the pleasure of meeting some of these people that are pretty well known while doing the conferences, and it's cool because, in my opinion, we're all just people. You know what I mean? And this isn't really the thing to get famous on. I guess some people do, but you can't get famous or rich of it that I've noticed. It's about helping people and about helping humanity, I think. Not letting this place get burned up. Astro Galactica, welcome. Mark Hammer, welcome. Well, this is a great, gosh, I'm way behind. I'm sorry, folks, I'm way behind. Let me try to catch up before I get out of here. Boy, Live in the Sky, you've said some great stuff. You're a great chatter. Thank you, my friend. Uh-oh. What's he saying, Mark? Oh, maybe help them cross over if you do that one. Yeah, you're right. Whoever said that earlier, yeah, that is true. Ghosts are technically earthbound, I guess, for the most part. I would agree with that. And it's not always, it's suffering whether they're inside or outside the energy field, because they can't come and go like the ones that have crossed over into the light. So I agree with you all, definitely. Aerial Space, thank you for being here. Oh, thanks, Jessica. Still need to do more stuff on there too. Oh, maybe try to cross it or see. Also, make sure. Hey, Kent, make sure it's not one of those. Oh my lord, I must be getting tired. Why can't I think of the name? Incubus or succubus. I think it's the incubus that jumps on women. It's more of a sexual thing, but I have heard that they also sometimes it's not always sexual. They just call it sleep paralysis or doing like slapping poltergeist. And also make sure that your wife isn't super strong psychic and unknowing it, and she's making her own poltergeist on herself. I've encountered that too. Sometimes people don't know how strong they are. That's really a good. Thanks for sharing that though, Kent. Ah, Allison, what's up, Allison? Thank you for being here. My friend that took the pictures of Linda Moulton Howe and I. Still in great and so grateful for that still. Otherwise, I could never prove that even happened. You got those pictures, and the gentleman, Dennis from Journey. God, oh, he's a writer for a magazine. I can't think of the name of the magazine. He followed us too, and he recorded that whole thing. So that was like, man, I actually got her and I sitting there talking. She's never worked with me again. She said we had a bunch of work to do, but when I actually sent her a video, she didn't respond. And one, I had sent her the one that was recording, and I think she got freaked out because it got not banned on YouTube, but it got like a strike. I got it off, but it's because I was talking about Inky and how I think Inky, when he's on top of the waterfall, or in that petroglyph, he's on the, we got the fish coming off of the waterfall on his head, and he's on like this platform. And I thought that that's what the Urantia book over here was calling Adam and Eve, and the ceremony that they had to go through when they got here, and also how they were called biological uplifters. And I think that's representing Inky as that fish is supposed to be actually, I think, sperm, the god of sperm. I think that's what that represents, but that got me in trouble. So hopefully it doesn't again. Shit, that was dumb. That was dumb. Anyway. Sorry. Rosie, welcome. You know, for a minute, I was trying to remember if you were my friend from London or not. I'm not sure, but either way, you've showed up a lot. Thank you. And you've been very supportive too, like the comments and everything. Oh, after a traumatic experience? Oh, you know, it could, Karen, it could also be an earthbound spirit. That is what, or a couple of them, that is also one of the things they do cause fatigue and tiredness, as any attachments will. So it could be maybe a little both or one or the other, but definitely I like how you're keeping your mind open and all that. But it could be an earthbound too. If you're interested in doing a session with me, email me at barrylittleton13@gmail.com and we'll set something up. There you're a Sunfire Goddess. Greetings. I didn't make you into a moderator, actually. I'm glad you're here. Do you have a suggestion to remove entities on your own? I mean, you could just Google that and everybody's got a white light. Some type of a light technique, you know what I mean? The best thing I can say, honestly, Blue Doe, is, and this is something I teach during my sessions, is how to actually use our projection, our intent of will, and how to project our intent of will. That's when you really can affect things and you push these things away from you. And then one of the major ways to do that, Blue Doe, is through our imagination. Okay, through our imagination comes great strength. And when projecting our intent of will. See, and that's something that isn't emphasized enough. Like even when dissolving negative identities, it's also using actually the imagination. Okay, because the negative identities are so deep submerged in the subconscious by what I personally believe is the default mode network of the brain which keeps repeating negative stuff to us, negative cognition again and again and again, to where we're already seeing future negative stuff and projecting ourselves to having negative outcomes in future circumstances that haven't even happened yet. So that in that way, the default mode network is temporal. And learning how to use the imagination to project our intent of will is really, really a good skill. Okay. Hopefully that helps with that. But that's what I teach a lot during my private sessions, and certain visual techniques that help with that. Great question. What's happening, Tamara? It can. You know, what really kind of sucks is that it also can be generational. And I know we talk about generational curses a lot, but I've seen them passed down to people from generations before. I mean, from the beginning of generations starting when doing curse cutting, you know? So in that way, you just have, and it's really unfair. So it's like you incarnate here, and upon your incarnation, you're carrying possibly physical trauma in your body from a death in a past life. I've dealt with that with some clients. Okay. You have a death in a past life that somehow makes the transition into this body and into a body part, and is stored as trapped emotions in this body from a past life in a different body, man. That's real. So you get that. You get also generational curses from your parents, your grandparents, going all the way back. That gets sent your way. So, you know, so you got those things alone. And then if you have just, you know, karma, now karma, as far as something you did in another life, that can bleed over too, as far as I can tell. You know, if you're somebody that needed compassion, get sent to this planet here. It'll give you whatever you need. It'll give you cancer, something you need to learn compassion. This place has enough trauma for everybody to learn a little bit of anything and everything. So that's probably my answer to that. I hope that helps. But yeah, so I would say, yeah, my answer would be yes to that. Hey, what's happening? You know something else? So check this out. I got this brother named Zach Jefferson. We're friends on Facebook. His wife is Angela Jefferson. Really good people, and Zach is very, very super sharp. Okay, he wrote Linda Moulton Howe asking her how come she didn't talk about the tall blacks or any melanin dominant extraterrestrials whatsoever. Why is she so stuck on just the tall whites? And, you know, it took her a while, but she finally responded to him and gave the excuse, well, nobody tells me about them. I never hear anybody talking about them. I don't get any reports about them. That may even be true. But, you know, in all honesty, look, I'm not going to bullshit y'all never. That's the excuse Ray Hernandez gave me. I said, hey, man, how come you don't have nothing really about melanin dominant extraterrestrials in there? He's, in all of our studies, no one ever said that. No one talked about that. It could be true, though. When I came forward, I had to really pry to learn to get people to talk about it, okay, even in my own people. Because when I first came forward, I really was addressing melanin-dominant contactees and melanin-dominant extraterrestrials. Okay, it wasn't my only deal. I want other things, but I want to be representation of that and make sure at least it gets, I don't care, I'll put my head on the chop blocking so some people can talk about that. Now, vice versa, Allison, I wondered if that's why Linda never talked to me again, is because she found out I talk about black extraterrestrials. I did address her on it, but was that enough to make her not respond? I made a video that I never released for her. It's like 42 minutes long. And God knows it cost me a fortune from the brother that done my videos, you know, but he was very tripped out on time. Good brother, but all my videos need to be within 7 to 8 minutes. So anything longer than that, he would like not be happy. Anyway, but she never responded, you know, and I assume it's probably because of that. And then she got tripped out about the inky thing I was talking about, maybe, but she never responded to me again. And I've seen her have some people on there. Look, I'm not special, but my experiences are noteworthy, just like all yours are. And I've done a great deal to understand them. Okay, so some of the stuff I present information-wise is as good as some of the people she's talking to, but stuff I say doesn't go over because I talk about things like that. Melanin dominant extraterrestrial, or say that some of these people in this field are full of it, man. They're so full of it. I mean, bunches of them. And then you see the same people talking at every single conference. And some of them don't be talking about shit, man. And you know it. And it's just the same thing over and over again and again. So stuff like that probably got me in trouble and got me disliked. You know what I mean? That's all right. I don't care. I stand for truth. I stand for reality. Just like Christopher Reeve was a Superman one. No, I don't like that one. No, I don't want to say that. No, no. Anyway, no, just seriously though. But that's just something to think about when it comes to her. But she's totally tripped on the tall whites, you know. And no disrespect to those, but to think that they are the genetic benefactor for all humanity is BS. That's as bad as saying Yahushua was this cat with the white beard and the blonde hair on the chair and stuff. Not from the area he came from. It's just, little stuff like that. But I'm seeing since I came forward, Allison, like even when I met you in person at the Conscious Life Expo, number one, I just got back from Australia 3 days earlier from the most harrowing near-death experience I had had since I had brain injuries, okay? So I was really worried about that. I was self-confident, self-conscious in that way and everything, and just glad to be alive. And number two is I was doing a private presentation. There was like 25 people in there. I didn't think anybody was going to come. I was pretty sure I was going to be sitting in there talking to maybe 1-2 people at most and look like an idiot. But that's not what happened there at all. And then after that, when I got done, I was trying to get done, but people started talking to me. I was running behind, and Daniel Brinkley ran up to me and started talking. And he's like, I heard a lot about you. And he starts touching my hand. He's just going like that. He's trying to read me. First, that to me is like, oh, come on. But when I let him do it, because I'm like, they say, he's looking at me, he goes, oh, well, you died like I did. And I said, yeah, we got that in common. He looks at me, he goes, but you're not even trying to make any money on this. I said, no, not really. And he's like, man, you should write a book like I did. You're probably selling a million copies, and I'll help you. Whatever you need. I was like, really? I was like, I got a copy of your book, And I said, the movie with Eric Roberts, how'd you feel about that? He looks at me, he goes, man, they did a pretty good job. He said, they did a pretty good job. It was Hollywood-like, but they got some things right. And he starts looking at me, he goes, they're going to try to kill you again. You know that, right? I said, yeah, that just happened to me. I was in Australia. They just tried to I almost died there. Yeah, that's why I'm so very touchy about the individual that stabbed me in the back when I was over there. Didn't care at all. Okay, I know, but I'm trying not to have a heart wall, and I've dropped it, not taking that no further. But when you go through something like that, and somebody don't even give a damn enough to come see and make sure you're all right, just one time when you're in their city, out of your country, for 2 months, that's a piece of crap, man. And don't say that that's just, it's just business. No, it's not just business. That's personal. And if you do somebody like that, you have no moral business or personally. You're a piece of shit. Straight up. I don't care how many crystal bowls you ring. I don't care how many drums you bowl, how many times you tell people, hey, source, good source. What do you know about source when you can't even ask anybody for forgiveness? You can't be real. You have no humility. How are you telling anybody to ascend anywhere or giving people ascension? That's crap. And stuff like that needs to stop on this planet. It's people like that that are in charge of everything right now, faking people out. People that are in charge, need fame. Give me likes. Give me views. It's more important than helping anyone, and that stuff doesn't help people. And important, like I say, like if we do a session together, okay, you do a session with me, I do readings, yeah, that's cool. But to me, readings are cool, but they're not like hypnosis sessions where the person does it themselves. I'm just a guide, but they're the one doing the work, just like dissolving a negative identity. It's not Barry doing it. It's the client doing it. You know what I mean? But that's where it's at. So if you do a session with me or any of these people, it's about what during the session helped benefit your daily life. Boom! That's where it's at. Ooh. Yeah. You know what's interesting about that, Urso? I've heard also how that can be done through just the DNA cloud that we leave after we die. Also, the DNA cloud still exists, decaying for like a long time for anywhere we've been in any room for a certain amount of time, and that they can use that also for the same type of thing. And it's real interesting when that even starts taking us, I think, into some type of time control technologies they might be working with, things that deal with like what's it called, electrofluorescence, which I think is regenerating bones. And that the guy that wrote the book, excuse me, The Body Electric. I got a picture of that somewhere. Hold on, let me bring that up. That's what's cool. We talk about this. Oh, sorry, it's over here. Sure, I got a picture of that body, that book. It's really good. It's not too old either. There it is. Sorry, folks. It seems like my cognitive ability must be slowing. I was getting them up a lot quicker than this, but here it comes. Here you go. The Body Electric by the Robert Becker and Gary Selden. Good book. And what they're focusing on, amongst other things there, is how to regenerate like body parts through electrophoresis. And the same way, like, salamanders and frogs can grow new limbs. It's trying to stimulate humans to actually do that. And also how to use certain electric currents to actually heal the body and regenerate cells as well, cell regeneration. So it's really a good, interesting book. And at some points, it reminds me of something, a video I might put out sometime, that I was always into the ablation of viruses by certain magnetic fields, and how you can ablation of like tumors while leaving the positive cells intact. Things like Reich and also, oh gosh, what was the, oh gosh, I should know that right off the top of my head. Not just Reich, but the other guy that had the frequencies machine. Reich, sorry. Yeah, but just interesting. Just a good read there for anybody that's interested in this type of stuff. But I think that honestly, this is where our science is going much more, as far as humans go. Right on, man. We'll get together, man. By the way, Brian, I hope your health is good, man. I know you had a couple of problems going on. I've been there, man. So I hope you're good, bro. Stephen Wolf, what's up, man? Glad you're here, bro. Always welcome. That's interesting you say that, because there's like a time where I mentioned before that where we get a little bit of time to wrap things up before we like kind of transition. Like maybe part of us leaves and then some of us stays here and wraps up and then goes. I've seen that actually. My niece's father when he passed. And my condolences too. Uh-oh, who's this? Mark, what's up? What's really interesting about that, Mark, is I think it's very cool, but I think even more my attention should be paid attention to what they're doing with ketamine now and the ketamine treatments, and how they're using ketamine along with what's called journey spacing to actually clear the default mode network I was just talking about earlier. And they're doing that through neuroplasticity, meaning that clearing the network allows new neurons to form new pathways. And you already know I have an interest in plasticity due to the fact I had these brain injuries and I had died from them and all that. And then when I remembered who I was and got discharged, the doctors kept telling me that, you're a great example of neuroplasticity. And look, I had a degree in psych, but I never heard that word. You know what I mean? As soon as I got out of that hospital, got my computer working, I was like, what's neuroplasticity? But I know now. And it's interesting because sometimes when I read something, I can go, boom, directly to the information even quicker than I could before. So, you know, my brother had commented on that too. So that's what I think neuroplasticity is good for. But the ketamine actually builds neuroplasticity to clear the default mode network. So in that way, I think maybe the ketamine is a little bit even beyond the psilocybin, which I think has a similar effect that they found out with depression. So those two things are definitely like microdosing with a psilocybin. God, I've never said that word correctly. I know I'm gonna get dogged for that one. Gosh. Anyway, but another way that's good, and I'd like to see that they're coming with these type of things to really help people. You know what I mean? Opposed to some of those antidepressants that turn people into zombies. You know, there's some things that are right. Like let's say, in my personal opinion, I've seen some people, you know, that were inexperienced, some young people or middle-aged people that had really bad bipolar 2, and they got on lithium and it helped them. You know, a lot of times we hear, oh, it's a chemical reaction, it's a chemical imbalance, but we never seen no test. But you know, but there's something with the lithium that really does help people with bipolar 2 sometimes. So, you know, but that's few and far between because that pharmaceutical industry has got to be about as demonic as even more demonic than the celebrity circuit probably. Oh, right on. And you know, kid, nothing wrong with getting help. People to help you when you do it. You know what I mean? Because sometimes closing the portals on a haunted, because when you get a haunted house like that, it's haunted and that stuff's coming through because there's a disturbance. There's some sort of a portal there. And the portals come male and female. So you got one portal somewhere near that property, there'll be another one. And a lot of times those people that come and do work in people's houses, they don't close the portal. And if they do, they don't have the knowledge to know there's another one, and the other one stays open. So entities start using the other ones. You know what I mean? It may take a little bit of time lag, but that happens sometimes. So I understand. So never be too worried about asking for help. Here, I'll show this real quick too. And I actually have shown this before, but why not do it again? Just to familiarize those that don't know like what my experience was. And people say, "Oh," and that is Yandar / Xandar, and this is one that it took me a while to get Christine to get this one right because I wanted to be correct. And you know, he said, "Oh, you need to use AI now." This was done years and years before the AI, and I was satisfied with it. So I haven't quite made the jump to get things more concise with the AI programs yet. So I'm just sticking with these for now. But in the back is a Bell 2256, which has, you see by even gravitational lensing on one of them there, but that's where you have a lot of galaxies that are colliding. What is it? 800, 900 million light years out. Yeah. So, I mean, it's way far out there. And that's where this being is telling me a place of origin. Okay. I bring this up because this was an encounter with an insectoid I had. And this one, he was capable of projecting something different, like when walking around in the population here. He appeared to be a kid that had on kitty cats and a hat, you know, and I interacted several times, but he was telepathic. But I was too young to put together. Not everybody could do it. I thought maybe just certain ones of us could do it. And maybe we get older to get better like I could do it. I didn't know, you know, but this being, I bring it up because it looked much more like a grasshopper. And you know, there's several different species of grasshopper, only a couple which actually turn into locusts under certain circumstances when they look a little bit different. but he looked like a grasshopper without antenna, and he had like these milky greenish type skin, but this milky looking eyes, like white milky looking eyes, kind of very peaceful, very scientifically advanced. I mentioned before, finally, that I have reasons to believe that this individual may be me in another incarnation. I'm beginning to wonder. I have wondered for a while because the interest that it took for me was very specific. And as other ones like Mana that I've showed you a picture of, I wondered why some of these beings were so eager to step forward when I was young, and then they stepped back and others stepped forward when I got older into the adult onset experiences. You know what I mean? But that's not just me. That's, a lot of us have this stuff happening. That's your opinion only. You have civilizations that actually been created on that, especially look at what the Toltecs did. You can't say that at all. And right now, you need to scientifically disprove neuroplasticity that is used by psilocybin and used by ketamine and psychedelics themselves. You can't just dismiss that like that. I want to see scientifically you produce that scientific evidence of what you just said. Sometimes when people say this doesn't quite, kick it. Weren't Sleestack reptilians though that hissed? I think they were reptilian, not insectoid. I think. Oh wow, I'm sorry to hear that. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, Steve. Condolences. I'll tell you one thing. That shit he predicted didn't happen. Another prediction that doesn't happen, and no one ever says anything. These people make these future predictions, and nothing happens at all, and it kind of just goes away. But I don't know, man. I don't look a whole lot into his stuff. Ray used to always tell me, "Oh, he's the best contactee of all time, most serious hardcore contactee of all time." He might be. I don't know. Some of these people I don't resonate with. I don't pay a whole lot of attention to what they say. So, I mean, no offense to anybody. I just haven't looked into stuff a whole lot. He might be great, though. But I know everybody was going with these predictions this cat had, and nothing happened, and now nobody's saying anything. When they're supposed to be like full contact a couple of days ago, and nothing happened. Yeah. Right on. Hey, that's what it's about, Steve. If you want to try it, it goes really good. But for me, and I can't speak for everybody, y'all, but for me, I had a problem being hypnotized because I'm a control freak. Couldn't let go, couldn't relax. Okay, so that was just another problem there. But I had to sit down and actually let somebody else do it for me, Yeah, he was a nice guy, actually. He was really a nice guy. I actually took a couple of pictures of us after that whole Benny Hill thing. He had me so laughing. I did the first picture. I had like 3 pictures. The first one, my face looks all contorted because I couldn't stop laughing from the Benny Hill thing. And then the others were good pictures though. He was a nice cat. Hey, my pleasure. Thank you for helping and being here. Hi, Mandy. I didn't see you come on, but somebody said you're here. That's interesting. I don't know. I've definitely seen something similar in somebody that died in a war in a different past life. It wasn't exactly arthritis. Well, it wasn't arthritis, but it sounded more like, God, what do they call that? Where you got the pain from your foot all the way to your neck? Not appendicitis. Sorry, but it was that, but it's from a past life, a war wound. Audio 245. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you for being here. I hope not too much, but it seemed kind of that way to me. And her response to Zach was not very encouraging. You know what I mean? To be honest, I was a little disappointed. But I always wanted to meet her, and that's the one person in all this stuff I wanted to meet. And I always said, man, if I keep it real and stay real, I'll get to meet her one day. And that's what happened. I was aware of her when she came to Kansas in, it was like 1986. First time I'd ever heard about cattle mutilations. 87 maybe, was before I even got in high school. So. I'm not seeing that. That's interesting. In fact, could you tell me where she said that? I'd be interested in looking that up. That's really cool. Thanks for sharing that. I say it a lot, and I don't have no regrets about it. Let's see. Yeah, it's a good book. It's a good book. Check it out. It's interesting, kind of cutting edge, and I think where we're going a lot when it comes to electrophorensis, if I'm saying that correct. No, I've never heard of that individual. That's cool, though. No, that's a newer book. That's a newer book there. I don't want to say a couple of years old, maybe, if that. Yeah, 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 right on. Paul Rich. I've been close to doing a live over The Brother from Another Planet. Have y'all seen that movie, The Brother from Another Planet, with Joe Morton? Long before he was, what was it in Terminator 2, where he was the the brother that made what is it, Cyberdyne or whatever. And he had the thing on her, and he boom. He was also on Eureka. But before all that, he was the brother from another planet. And I think that is a great movie in terms of significance. And something that they represented on there that I have seen before, which is some melanin dominant charters appear to be homeless. They will show up in your life looking like homeless people. I've heard that a few times, seen some pictures even. So, it's very fascinating. That's something that they kind of showed in Brother from Another Planet with Joe Morton, I think maybe 1982, 1983. The stuff going on with stem cell regeneration is really incredible. And also with telomeres, I think. Right on. Yeah, and once people cross over, and that's something there. You see, once they go into that light, they can come back and do that stuff. So what happens, when you listen to these people, you don't go into light and then you get stuck. You know what I mean? I've dealt with some earthbounds that told me that. I'm here because my church told me not to go into it. I knew that was a satanic thing. Or my friend told me not to do it. They said this and that. But then now I'm stuck. Stuff like that causes suffering. So I'm glad you got that, definitely. Oh, right on. That's an interesting place, Now that we've been talking about the Spirit Network on Jessica's show and the type 3s, 2s, and 1s, it makes me wonder if that, like Patrick Jackson also thought that Skinwalker Ranch was the result of being an area for these for that weapon system. Okay, those spears and a hot spot for that. So it makes me wonder if SETI's not the same. I had a video I had done with just one thing, probably several things as a SETI. I had done a couple interviews I did with Erica Lukes. Those of you all that know who she is, and she was like, I think maybe married to somebody that worked at Skinwalker Ranch or something, and she spent a lot of time out there. And I met her at a SETI in 2017, and she used to be a part of like MUFON, Utah, and she said something about something was going on with information being relayed, and she quit working there or something. But she's got some very interesting theories on like a SETI and Skinwalker Ranch, and them being testing zones for what she thinks is like human things. But I wonder if it's not just that, it's like more encompassing than that, and it has to do with the Spirit Network also. Again, just food for thought. Doesn't mean I'm right, but it's yeah, yeah. You know, there's one galaxy, SMAX 0427, I think it is. I had Jessica remote view that. Oh boy, right on. You were at that one? Okay, Steve. We met in person there. Okay. I'll try to remember who you were now. I have to see a picture of you. I'll tell you, that was my first conference ever. I used to speak publicly all the time, but it was about juvenile offender stuff. And I had not spoke but once since my accident. And I really went there to just be on that panel and sit on the panel. Get to meet some people I wanted to meet, but I wasn't supposed to really speak privately. And I wound up being whatever that lady's name was. What was it, Cassandra Dunn? Never met her, but something happened and she ran out and left the ranch the day before this conference started. And I wound up, they asked me to speak in her place, the first person up there. I didn't even have a speech put together. I just happened to bring the pictures for all the book that I've never been able to write. And I just showed them in the experience, and it went over pretty good. So thank you for being there. Very cool. But that's also where I had the holographic mountain thing happen while standing out there with Albert. I had the Sasquatch pushing over stuff behind that yurt. I had them howling out there like owls and cows. That place was a trip. I'm not a young brother, and I thought my days of going somewhere and having experiences that just stopped my world were behind me. But I found out that was not necessarily true. Oh, I like that statement. That's a nice statement. That's a nice statement. Never seen that one. There's a new Land of the Lost made, right? With that Will Ferrell or something. I never saw that one. If that's what you're talking about, that is. I might just be wrong. Damn, a Borzine. What's up, brother? What's going down, man? Oh boy, man, I thought you disappeared, man. Yeah, man. You still got my phone number, brother. Send me a text sometime, man. I talk to you. How interesting how some individuals turned out that we met in previous exchanges. Don't you think, brother? Hit me up, man. We should talk in private for sure, man. It's good to hear from you, man. As a matter of fact, the individual that I was just referring to with this last extraterrestrial attachment, Earthbound, is somebody that was at the conference, the last conference where we met in person, man. The individual there, I don't want to say their name out publicly, but they were actually mentioning you, and you two were in communication quite a bit. So that's cool, man. Right on. Good to hear from you, brother. Right on. Oh, this is about Edith and the melanin. Of Encounters, page 219 of Encounters. Read this book. I never saw that. High cheekbones. I don't see anything about melanin dominant. Blue eyes, green eyes. Or are you talking about a different book? I'm not seeing anything about Melanin Domino 2019. I'll look more later. Thank you, though. Yep, there's a lot of that going on right now. I agree. I was 70. The 70 people been here? I don't know how to tell how many people are in the chat or anything. I'll learn, though. But man, I'll tell you what, I really appreciate everybody being here. Oh, okay. Oh, never mind. Oh, got you. Oh, okay. You know what? If you go through all those videos there, all of them are there for 2016, 2017, and 2019. All 3 years I was there. I got blasted every time I was there. I think the first year was probably the coolest with the holographic mountain thing. That really pushed me to the edge. Right on. Hey, well, very, very, very cool live, everybody. Hey, thank you very much. Very cool live. Hey, everybody, I got a client here in about 15 minutes, so I got to go. I got to put it together. But thank you. I didn't think this would nearly go this long, but apparently it's a more popular subject than I thought. Thank you all for being here. Everybody in the chat, please subscribe. If you want a session, please hit me at barrylittleton13@gmail.com. I will set up an appointment with you, a schedule, and we'll knock it out. I do past life regressions, Earthbound Spirit Release, readings, trauma release, negative identity, dissolvement, and a few other things. No smoking, weight loss, all that stuff. So hit me up, and thank you for being here. Thanks, Jessica. Peace.